And I'm sure most of us are already known to pCloudy, and some of us maybe even their customers, we may be even using it. It's such a wonderful software for mobile app testing and automation if you haven't used it already. So Avinash is actually an alumnus of IIT and an MIT Sloan Scholar. Avinash is a keynote speaker, a passionate entrepreneur, and a sports lover. With over 15 years of experience in product development and testing, Avinash is on a mission to make app testing autonomous and thereby augmenting the strength of the testing team multifold in the testing process. pCloudy has been recognized as top 50 startups in 2018. We congratulate the team in making great strides in helping us, especially automation test engineers, assure in this test automation era. Welcoming Avinash again, and we are all ears to listen to your keynote topic on key to successful continuous testing in 2020. Over to you, Avinash.
Thank you so much. Hope you can see my screen and hear me.
Yeah, we are able to see you and your video. Your screen is yet to come.
So is it visible now?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And is my video also visible?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thanks for the introduction. Great words on the product. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be part of this community. This is our first time to be part of DOPA. We are living in a changed times. To imagine a virtual conference itself is quite an experience. And we are seeing it across our lives, be it our personal or professional. Things are changing dramatically. And it's all the more true for enterprises, organizations. They are forced to take measures in a much faster way than it was before COVID, right? So if you want to push a change in your organization, there can't be a better time. So, and similarly, the topic here is around continuous testing, which is all the more relevant in today's time. Vivek spoke at length about the impact of COVID in today's scenarios, and continuous testing came quite a number of times. I'm glad someone asked questions about mobile applications. So the topic here is quite relevant in today's time, and I'll be touching upon some of the key strategies, some of the journeys that one can take in making sure that they achieve continuous testing for their organization. Since as you got to know that pCloudy is around mobile applications, so my examples, my context will be more on the mobile application side, but largely the concepts will remain true for any kind of application. So with that, I'll take a few minutes just to introduce pCloudy. Some of you might not be aware, so I'll take just a few minutes. So pCloudy is a comprehensive solution to enable continuous testing for your app teams. And it does it in with all these components in place. Like it enables you to build a device lab either on cloud or on prem. It comes with rapid automation capabilities so that your teams can build in-sprint automations, very important for continuous testing. It comes with capabilities to enable automation execution at scale. So you should be able to run your automation continuously on 50, 100 devices together. Test analytics, a key need to be able to identify issues and fix it within your scripts so that your continuous testing process can go on. And it comes with pre-built plugins for mobile DevOps, so Jenkins, Circle CI, and those tools are all pre-built, and those plugins are pre-built within pCloudy. So it enables you to have your continuous testing for your app teams as quickly as possible. As far as the journey is concerned, I mean, we are very proud to say that we have taken quite a leap in last couple of years. We have more than 100K users from across the globe. 500 plus companies from across the globe are using pCloudy for their daily app testing needs. 20 plus are Fortune 500 enterprises, again, from across the globe. We are recognized by Gartner and other analysts. We are one of the highest rated platform on G2 Crowd, an independent review platform. We have customers from across different verticals, some of the key names that you can see here, and we are partners to some of the best in the industries. So having said that, having kind of given you a sense of who we are, what's my story today? I'll be covering this whole session into three distinct areas. The first one is key trend to digital and continuous testing, and it will overlap with what Vivek talked about. Some of the trends will you'll be able to relate to because he just covered that. And my major focus will be around what is the typical journey we have seen with different kind of application teams moving from a very early stage to a continuous testing stage. And in that sense, what should be the 2020 vision for your organization? And as I said, this is the best time to push a change within organization. So you should get ready and geared up for that. One big trend, I mean, we all are seeing remote working is new normal. One of the McKinsey report that came recently clearly depicts the phenomena here across different industries, be it information technology, to even as traditional as manufacturing. Majority of the workforce is working remotely today. And this is going to be a norm for some time to come. And you can see the jump. I mean, earlier this was 9%. Now in information technology, it's almost 84%. And that jump is visible across different industries. Another new normal that we are seeing is digital. And one of the memes which became quite popular these days, who led the digital transformation of your company? Is it CEO, CTO, or COVID-19? And we all can guess what's the right answer. COVID has given a push to digital like never before. Even the most traditional organizations have realized that they can't survive without going digital. So digital is new normal across different industries, across different sectors. Another interesting data point that you see here is adoption of digital channel among the consumer segment. So some of the segments have been leading the digital transformation from quite some time, like banking, entertainment, and there has been some laggards. But within every segment, you see a huge jump in first-time users who have started using those digital channels. So the blue bar that you see are the first-time users who have started using these digital channels in last couple of months. So across this industry, you see so many first-time users and who are not very tech savvy as well. I mean, these are people who had never used to using these kind of channels. As Vivek was mentioning, that education, right? Kids to even the elderly people are forced to use apps or web applications to order things for their healthcare access and all that. So the adoption of digital has increased, and at the same time, it means that the customer experience, the user experience of those digital channels are becoming quite significant. Now, I mean, digital can be anything, right? Web, it could be omni-channel, it could be a combination of channels here. But one of the other trends that we are seeing, and especially since we are in the mobile application area, is growth of mobiles. And as you can see, this study came just before COVID, but it clearly depicts what's the phenomena right now. So from 19 to 225, you see the arrow, there'll be 1 billion plus users getting added to this digital economy who will be mobile only. They're not going to use anything on their PCs. Most of their access will be on mobile, and primarily because of the developing countries adopting internet on their mobile applications. So these consumers will be mobile only, and that's a huge jump, which means a huge expansion of app, digital content for those newer mobile-only billion generation that we are going to see in next 5 to 6 more years. And it also adds to the importance of application testing here. Just add to what I said on the previous slide, the first-time users, their experience has to be paramount, right? And what we are seeing here is huge expansion of the consumer itself on the mobile side of it. So the experience on the mobile has to be absolutely paramount for any business to be successful. Now, this push to digital and remote working, this combination is giving rise to automation and adoption of cloud. Because if you are working remotely and businesses are forced to optimize their business processes or improve their efficiencies, automation is one big way where they are planning to improve their efficiencies. And second is adoption of cloud. Now, earlier there were a lot of apprehension about clouds, especially in the large enterprises in the sectors like banking or pharmaceuticals. But now, with this change, everyone is forced to look at how do we use it. I mean, cloud is the only strategy that can work in long term. So organizations are moving towards adoption of cloud in a much more faster way. And these two combined are the levers that will help us achieve continuous testing, automation and adoption of cloud. We'll talk about it in more details as we move along. But I think what I'm trying to emphasize here, this is the best time for us to adopt these practices and push these changes within the organization, because everything is right from that perspective. Now, I'm not saying this just just on the face of it. There are trendsetters who are already doing it and achieve successes, right? So for a Facebook story, if you're aware of it, especially in the space of mobile, they test on 2,000 real devices at any given point of time, more than 2,000 devices. And they have invested in that lab quite some time back. And you can just imagine the kind of investment they would have done. They have built huge data centers only for having the devices for their app teams so that they can test it continuously. And they are doing rapid release at a massive scale, which means multiple releases in a day. And this can only be achieved by practicing continuous testing. So we all can take cue from these trendsetters and start thinking as to what should be done for our organizations. Now, I'm slightly digressing from the key topic here, but I wanted to bring one key elements of one key element of mobile app testing in particular, and why the quality becomes very, very important, and some of the aspects that we'll be talking about slightly later on is related to this. Now, we have seen, you go to App Store and look at reviews of apps, you'll see so many bad reviews for different apps, report of crashes and things like that. And we have analyzed this data on our platform as to why apps fail. What are the key reasons why applications, especially mobile applications, fail? And this data that you see on this screen is primarily taken for Android, but there are similar trends for iOS application as well. And this will give you a sense of what the problem is. So there are two key reasons why applications fail that you can see in the type column here: device specific and non-device specific. And within those areas, then there are sub areas. So if I take up device specific and sum the total percentage of issues that we see, it's close to 40%. It means 40% of the application issues are because of device specific issues. And within that, these device specific issues are related to problematic driver implementations, OS customizations, or peculiar hardware compositions. And end of the day, this is about OEM customization. So I'm sure most of you would be aware, for example, Samsung picks up the vanilla Android and they customize it to suit their ecosystem. They create different skins, UI skins altogether on top of the vanilla Android systems. So that OEM customization, be it at the hardware level or at the OS level, is a big cause of why applications fail, and that constitutes of almost 40% of the issue, which means the testing on variety of devices becomes very, very important. And you can just imagine the number of OEMs that exist in the current world today. There are more than 30,000 OEMs in the world today building mobile phones, and that's increasing as we speak. The second category is non-device specific, and that's typically because of the Android ecosystem. So if you, let's say, if you look at the current popular Android OS versions, you will see Android 10 going back to Android 5.1. And if you combine that, you will still just achieve 60 to 70% of the coverage. The rest of the 30% is even the older versions. So just imagine the amount of compatibility that you need to build for your application if you have to achieve a decent 60-70% coverage. And in today's scenarios, as we saw the digital channel expansion, you don't want to leave the consumers who are probably using the older phones. So you have to make sure that those compatibilities are there for your application so that your adoption is higher. So the OS, the Android ecosystem related fragmentation itself is a huge cause, and that almost constitutes 60% of the bugs. So this combined device fragmentation and non-device fragmentation, which is the OS fragmentation, device OS fragmentation, if I can call it correctly, is what creates the issue for app developers as well as the app testing teams. And it's a nightmare for them to test their application and make sure that these are compatible before any releases. So giving that context will probably help us when we are talking about the continuous testing journey for different app teams, why testing on so many devices are very, very important. So now, having kind of set the context of what are the different trends, how digital is expanding, how mobile applications are very important, and what are the key challenges with respect to mobile application testing itself, I just want to touch upon how the journey to a continuous testing happens for different app teams. And this has come from experience that we saw, experience that we had with different customers building their testing practices for their mobile applications. And as I said, some of the practices that we'll be talking about is common across different platforms. So what happens, what you see here is a stage where an organization is thinking about creating an app testing strategy. So one of the things that they do is they set up certain kind of physical labs. So they will have some devices, 5-10 devices, or maybe even 10-15 devices within their labs. Typically, the new feature testing that happens is manual. They start building some UI automation using tools like Appium, but the coverage is pretty low. I mean, what we have seen in these stages are less than 50%. And they run it as their regression suite, as their sanity suite. And with this practice, at the very beginning, they are able to release their applications once in few weeks. And I would call this as a beginning stage, which is the stage one of organization who are taking up this journey, relying on certain set of physical devices, having a set of automation suite, and primarily the manual dependency on the testing, right? Now, if I just try to map it using different parameters, this is how it will look like. So device infrastructure is primarily local. The app handover from developer to QA is more manual, like through mails or internal repo links. New feature testing is manual. Regression testing is less than 50%. Automation trigger is again manual. There's no CI in place. Scale of automation only on few selected devices. There's no testing happening on production. Vivek talked about importance of production testing. So we'll come to that as we speak about. But in these initial stages, there's no testing happening on production. Test analytics is pretty basic. Someone just creates an Excel report, puts which devices are pass, fail, and then present it. So it's pretty basic. Now, then the organizations think about moving to the next stage. They start building some of the other practices which are required, and they move to stage two. And the change that you see from stage one to stage two is On the physical device side, they start realizing that those physical devices that they have are not enough. As we talked about the importance of device fragmentation and noise fragmentation, they need more devices for testing. So they start relying on either a cloud-based platform like pCloudy or others to access remaining devices that they don't have. So it's a combination of physical and cloud lab that they start using. They have invested in certain infrastructure to be able to run their automation in parallel. So few devices, like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 devices that they can run in parallel, or even more than that, maybe 10. The automation coverage increases a bit, which is around 70%. And one of the new element that gets introduced is API automation, so that their functionalities can be tested through APIs and the speed can increase. And then they introduce CI to just trigger the automation for their nightly runs or whatever frequency that they decide. And that increases the release frequency from maybe weeks to once in a week kind of state. So that we call it a stage 2, which is kind of midway. Now, what we are talking about is what should be the next evolution from what we saw from initial to mid stage, and how do we achieve a continuous testing state. And that is where I'm saying this is what my take is on 2020 vision. There could be other strategies as well, but this is what we have seen organizations adopting and achieving continuous testing. So what should be the goal of continuous testing here in the context of what we just spoke about? The first goal that we are looking at is reducing any testing bottlenecks to increase the speed of app releases. Teams should be in a state where they're not bottlenecked because of certain infrastructure needs, or they are not bottlenecked just because they have to wait for certain things to be available. So removing every testing bottleneck to increase the speed of app release. This is one of the key goals. And second is, by doing that, can we achieve a state where release can happen instantaneously? It could be multiple times in a day. So as soon as the organization is ready with the feature, they should be able to release it. Right? So that frequency is flexible here. And the faster the frequency is, the faster turnaround for the businesses. So these are the two key goals that we should keep in mind as we move to the next stage. And that can only happen when we adopt to the continuous testing practices. And this diagram is pretty self-explanatory. A lot of you would already be aware of. It's a combination of dev and ops practices. So there is the dev side, you can call it shift left. The ops side, you can call it shift right. So on the dev, again, the key here is at each stage, whether it's plan, branch, code, merge, build, we are testing. And then in the ops stage also, whether it's release, deploy, operate, or monitor, we are testing. Again, I think we can link it to what Vivek said in the digital QA strategy. The testing has to happen early. And this diagram clearly depicts that we have to test at every stage to be able to achieve what we just talked about in terms of our goal. How can we achieve multiple releases in a day? So it's a combination of shift right and shift left and shift right that organizations will have to think about, or the teams will have to think about. Now, how can we do that? I mean, what we talked about is that we need to test at every stage. Again, I'm talking here in the context of mobile apps, but one very obvious answer is, if you have to test at each stage, you can't do it manually, right? You have to increase the dependency on your automation at different stages. So if you're, let's say, doing a code check-in, there has to be unit test automated in place. If you're doing a functional test, there has to be regression test automated or API test automated. If you're doing testing on production, again, production monitoring test has to be there in an automated way. So dependency on automation has to increase if we are looking at achieving continuous testing. So maximizing the automation is the key if we are looking at achieving continuous testing, and that's one of the key strategies that we should take as a Vision 2020, be it mobile application or other projects. So I'm talking here in the context of mobile app, and you would have heard the concept of the test pyramid or automation pyramid. There is a lot of debate around mobile application pyramid, whether it should be standard or flip pyramid, but I'm not going to that debate. What we have seen is, if you really want to achieve continuous testing, the three things which is mentioned here are absolute key to it. The first is the end-to-end functional test coverage has to increase to almost 90%, and that's where the concepts like rapid automation is very important, that you are able to automate within sprint. It has to be supported by a good amount of unit tests using tools like Espresso or XCUI test. And the third key component is API test, because API tests in general are the most reliable ones, less fragile. So maximization of the testing through APIs are definitely one of the key aspects to achieving automation. So these are the three things that we see is needed to maximize the automation from the testing perspective. I'm not talking about the automation of other things like production monitoring on the infra side of it, but from the testing side, these are the three parameters that we should be looking at if you want to maximize the automation. And that cannot happen if the three pillars are not in place. And three pillars that I'm talking about here is infrastructure at scale, a certain amount of test orchestration, and some kind of test analytics. And we'll see why these elements are very important in a very, I'll try to keep it as quick as possible. So what happens when we talk about infra at scale? So we talked about, for example, testing on so many devices and testing in parallel on so many devices. The idea is that you should be able to build a platform where you are not bothered about running your test on few devices. I mean, it should be as scalable as possible. You should be able to run it on 10, 20, 50 devices as the need arises. And that can only happen if the organization is ready to invest in a infrastructure at scale. It could be on-prem, it could be cloud. In the current situation, the cloud is much better option, but you need to have infrastructure at scale. The teams needs to invest in that. So that's one of the basic principle of having the automation maximized for achieving continuous testing. The second aspect is the test orchestration that we talked about. So a lot of discussion happened in the previous presentation also around CI pipeline. Now here what we are talking about is having your test orchestration in a way that every stage of your testing is driven through a pipeline. So be it your unit tests or your integration test or your staging test, all is driven through a CI pipeline. And it can be achieved through any tool, I mean, whether it's Jenkins or other tools that you might be using. But the underlying automation tools should have the right plugin so that it can be called through CI pipelines very, very easily. And at pCloudy, we have built those plugins by default so that the teams don't need to invest there. So as you can see here, I mean, this is one of the sample pipeline where the unit test, integration test, staging tests are run in sequence depending on the state of a particular test. So if the unit test pass, then integration test is automatically triggered. And then once integration test is triggered, the staging tests are triggered. So it's all happening in a sequence here. And that gives the scale to the teams to be able to push releases on demand. So as soon as all three stages are passed, you can take a decision to just push it to production. So you don't need to wait for any validation from other teams. So it's all can happen in a completely automated way. Another aspect of test orchestration is to be able to distribute tests across different devices. So we talked about automation execution at scale. So even if you have infra, how do you take smart decision in terms of how many tests should I run for a particular release? Should I run the full test? And I need to run on, let's say, 50 devices, 100 devices. It will take hours for me to get completed. I can't wait my CI pipeline cannot wait for that time. So can I use smart techniques like orchestrators to distribute the tests and still achieve the same coverage? So that is where techniques like orchestrator becomes very critical while designing the continuous testing practices for app teams. And it's true for any enterprise application or web application. As soon as you have to run on a huge infrastructure, you need to build the orchestrators in your testing practice. And then the third aspect that I wanted to touch upon was test analytics. This is one of the most ignored aspect that we have seen. I mean, companies invest a lot in their infra, they build their pipelines. But what happens is as soon as you start automating or start executing on large scale infrastructure, if a particular aspect of your test fails, how do you quickly analyze will define how quickly can you fix it and how smoothly your CI pipeline can run. But if you're taking too long to fix it, then your CI pipeline will break. So a good test analytics is one of the area that we all should invest. Now AI is in place to be able to generate analytics and give you insights, which was very difficult to do earlier. But I think focus on test analytics becomes a key to success if you are looking at large scale infrastructure or large scale automation runs. So we have built a test analytics which is designed for you to debug and quickly fix your test script. So what you see here is a kind of dashboard where all the pass, fail test cases are segregated. Within that, you can drill down and start seeing errors specifically at the test case level. And then you have detailed reporting to be able to identify and fix it. So, and on top of it, it generates a lot of comparison, as I said, using AI to give you some more insight as to which part of the test case is failing, which part of the application is more prone to errors, etc. Right? So the test analytics helps you identify issues and fix it very, very quickly. So with these three things in place, we come to the stage 3, and that's what we call it the continuous stage. And to summarize it, what the stage 3 looks like and how you move from stage 1 to stage 3. So device infrastructure, which is one of the key element, it could be device infrastructure, it could be your browser infrastructure, it could be other kind of labs that you might need for your, depending on your application. But here, since we are talking about apps, I'm focusing on device infrastructure here. So at stage 3, what we see is cloud-based infrastructure. It could be internal or external, but it has to be a cloud to be able to achieve continuous testing. The app handover from developers to QA, it has to be automated through CI pipelines. The new feature testing has to be completely automated within sprint. Regression testing has to happen through automated scripts. More than 90% coverage is needed. Automation trigger through CI pipeline. Scale of automation has to be unlimited. You should not be bottlenecked because you are only able to run on few devices. Right? Then test on production. This is very, very important in current scenario, that you are able to run your existing UI tests, or you can build maybe separate tests to be able to run on production. And now that you have the CI pipeline in place, you can integrate it through CI pipelines. And last but not the least, the test analytics. It has to be a completely automated system giving you analytics so that you can fix it and make sure that your CI pipeline is not broken. So this is what our stage 3 should look like, which we call it a continuous stage. And this is where the organizations should strive to move towards. So whether you are at level 1 or level 2, level 3 is what you should be targeting as 2020 strategy, as I'm saying, where the focus should be on automation at scale using internal and external cloud, complete CI/CD pipeline, and adoption of automation pyramid for continuous testing. So with that thought, I will kind of stop my session and be open for any question and answer. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be willing to hear your thoughts, learn from you. I know this community is practitioner, and there are a lot of leaders as well. So hope to learn from you, and feel free to share your thoughts. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks, Avinash. Here's a quick question from Santosh. Are the report widgets on pCloudy customizable?
So not right now. I mean, we provide a standard reporting mechanism to all the customers, and we keep modifying it based on the customer requests. But right now, it's a standard way of providing the data. And since a cloud platform, we make sure that it's one platform for everyone. We don't customize it for each customer in that sense.
Okay. We have a question from Brijesh there. So the question goes like this: while Facebook is great example of implementation of CT practices, they still have bugs in production. So what, according to you, can or needs to change? Will that change tie up to what Vivek spoke about?
Yeah, I think, see, Facebook has, I mean, if you look at the amount of customers that they're serving billions of customers. So if we look at the scale of their user base, it's huge. I mean, we can always pinpoint that they still have bugs, but the scale of their user base and the scale of change that they push is massive. I mean, one of the policy that they follow is take the product as early as possible. I mean, if you look at Google and Facebook philosophy, they follow try fast, fail fast. So they don't mind few bugs, but they want to reach the customers faster. So that's one of the strategy that they have taken. While some of the other traditional players think about building a perfect product before taking it to the consumer. But the one aspect that you'll see with Facebook is they will take up those feedbacks quickly and come back with changes very, very fast. And that's where I think the practice of continuous testing becomes very important for them, that they are able to release it so fast and with such a massive speed. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We have one more question from Amita. I think Amita has raised her hand. Amita, can you please go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, hi Avinash. First of all, thanks for the wonderful session. It was very informative. So my question is, you spoke about test analytics, which will give you the idea about the error-prone area in the application. So can you elaborate more on that a little bit?
Okay, so what I meant to say was, for example, let's say you have a massive test of, let's say, 1,000 test cases, which you are running it on 100, 200 devices. Now, that test will take some time before it gets completed. So do you want to wait till the end before you start looking at the problems within the scripts and then start fixing it, which means that your next cycle can be delayed? What we are saying that the test analytics should be a real-time information about your test failures. So for example, let's say a particular test case fails within first few minutes of execution. Can you go and look at the details of those issues? For example, we talked about request response for a particular test case itself, or JSON details about that request response. So while your rest of the test cases are still running, you are in a position to go and look at why the test case failed and start fixing it. So by that time, maybe the whole test case is finished. You have already fixed certain bugs or reported issues to your developers. That's one part of the analytics. The point is that it has to be a real-time analytics so that you are able to fix it much faster. The traditional approach that we see right now is, okay, let the whole execution gets completed, then someone starts analyzing. While analyzing, you don't have enough data, so you need to rerun, etc. That takes a lot of time. What you need to have is the information to fix at a single click and as early as possible. So these are the two key points when I'm saying test analytics becomes very important. And the third aspect is that over a period of time, you should be able to analyze how your runs are, in terms of, as I said, which part of your application is failing more often, which test cases are failing more often. Maybe test cases which are failing more often, I need to quarantine it and keep it separate so that it's not impacting my pipeline. I'll fix it later. And that piece of code has to be probably tested in some other way. So those are the calls that you can take. Because a lot of times we have seen is if the failures are huge, the reliability on the automation itself becomes questionable. The management stops relying. Your whole effort goes for a toss. So it's very important that you identify the test cases which are stable, which are not stable, and either you're able to fix it so quickly or just park it somewhere and then take actions later on. So that's where the test analytics becomes plays a key role.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Folks, in the interest of time, I'm going to restrict it to one question per person. We have one more question from Sanjay Mahajan. Avinash, so this one is, how do you see continuous testing in brownfield implementations?
Brownfield implementations, is that the right word?
Yeah, basically in the existing project, something that is not from scratch.
Sorry, okay, got it. So that's where I think you can see the stages that we defined, right? I mean, what you have to identify is where you are. I mean, the stages that we talked about are at a very high level in the presentation, but there is a way to identify at what stage you are in your brownfield project. Are you at stage 1, which is the basic one that we talked about? Are you at stage 2, which is slightly intermediate? And then that will give you the list of gaps which you need to fill, right? Maybe you are not doing enough API automation. Maybe you are not having the enough rapid automation test practices. So if you are able to identify those stages and look at those gaps, it'll be much more easy to plan, okay, how do I achieve my stage 3? So it's a very, I mean, I would say it will be an iterative process where you first identify those stages. We can share those details probably separately with you, and you can do an internal audit and see at what stage you are in, and then plan the actions accordingly. So whether it's I mean, the stages that we talked about is much more relevant for brownfield projects, I would say. If you are starting from scratch, you can plan everything for stage 3. But if you are in brownfield, then it's better that you identify at what stage you are in and then take corrective actions.
Okay. One more question from Sandeep. With hundreds of tests fired to multiple devices, how does pCloudy handle this test distribution? Does it run in parallel, or does it run on a scheduled basis, or it gets triggered all at the same time?
So the key here is, I mean, the fundamental that we follow is the where all the tests are run in parallel. So as soon as you fire tests on 100 devices, these will start running on those 100 devices. And of course, there are techniques. For example, a particular device is not available at that moment of time. It will wait for some time. So those are failover techniques that we have. But fundamentally, it triggers tests on all 100 devices. But that's where the concept of test orchestration comes into play. Do you want all your tests to be executed on all 100 devices? Or let's say if I have 100 test cases, can I do 10 test cases on each devices? And then next time when I run, it will be next set of 10 test cases on the same devices. So over a period of few runs, I'm still executing all my test cases on all the devices. But at a given point of time, I'm distributing the tests in a way that I can minimize my time of execution. But that's a call. If you have enough time, you can run all the test cases together. But if you really need to optimize, you can use orchestration techniques. But pCloudy will allow you to run all the tests in parallel. It also has orchestrators in place which you can use, or you can build your own orchestrators. We provide APIs so that you can integrate it.
Okay. So thanks a lot, Avinash. I think we are at the top of the hour, and we still have more questions, but I request everyone to kind of get in touch with Avinash directly and get them answered. Let me just take control of the screen.
Thank you so much. Feel free to connect with me directly over LinkedIn, or you can send email. I would love to talk more about it and hear from you. I mean, learn from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Avinash. And it was really, really a wonderful session. and folks loved it. And you can of course see more questions on the chat. And it was very, very interesting as well as educative.